Have you ever felt like you're kind of stuck? You know, going through the motions, but craving something more, like something deeper, but you're just not sure where to even begin.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. The ideas of J. Krishnamurti, specifically from his book, Freedom from the Known.
Ooh, freedom from the known. That sounds intriguing.
It is. It's a compilation of his talks all about breaking free from, well, everything you think you know.
Whoa, okay, so like challenging all those assumptions we've built our lives on.
Exactly. And we'll explore how Krishnamurti urges us to examine those assumptions, to discover a whole new kind of freedom.
I am so ready for this. If you're listening and you're ready to like shake things up and dive deep, let's get started.
Sounds good. So one of the first things Krishnamurti talks about is this search, this universal human search for something more than just material well-being.
Yeah, like beyond just the basic needs.
Right. He calls it a nameless thing of 1,000 names. And throughout history, humans have turned to all sorts of things to find it. Saviors, strict codes of conduct, elaborate rituals, you name it.
And yet, we still end up stuck in these cycles of conflict and violence. It's like we're always looking for answers in all the wrong places.
It's true. And what's fascinating is how Krishnamurti kind of flips the script. He challenges us to stop seeking external solutions and to really look inward, to examine our own minds, our own conditioning.
So instead of looking outward for answers, we need to look inward.
Exactly. He says we rely way too heavily on teachers' books, saints even, to tell us about the world,
Yeah, we just accept what we're told without really questioning it.
Right, and that leads to living a secondhand life, guided by other people's opinions and beliefs. Like we're just going through the motions, following a script that someone else wrote.
Ooh, I like that analogy. A script someone else wrote. Have you ever thought about how much of what you believe is actually because someone told you to believe it?
Oh, all the time. It's a constant process of questioning and reevaluating, and that's what Krishnamurti is all about. He's urging us to move beyond that blind acceptance, to discover our own original understanding of reality.
To wake up from that autopilot state and really see the world with fresh eyes.
I love that. Exactly. It's about becoming an active participant in your own life.
And it's not just gurus or religious figures that he challenges. Krishnamurti talks about this trap of respectability, that desire for social status, the fear of what other people will think.
That's a good one. So we get so caught up in trying to fit in.
Yeah, it's like we're so busy trying to fit into a mold created by society that we lose sight of who we really are. And he uses the story about two monks to illustrate this point.
Oh, yeah, I know that story. Tell me if I'm remembering it right. They're walking, and they come to this river where a woman is stranded. And one monk just immediately picks her up and carries her across.
And later, the other monk is like all troubled, saying they took a vow not to touch women. And the first monk just replies, I left her behind 2 hours ago. Are you still carrying her?
Wow. What a story. Such a powerful image, right?
It really makes you think about all the ways we cling to the past, to our beliefs, our hurts, our regrets.
Like we're afraid to let go of them even when they're weighing us down.
Exactly. It's this clinging to yesterday that keeps us from experiencing the freedom of the present moment.
Right. You can't be truly free if you're dragging the past along with you.
So how do we start to let go of that baggage?
Well, that's a big question, and it's something we can explore further. But first, I think it's important to understand Krishnamurti's idea of the individual versus the human being.
Okay, this is where things start to get really interesting. He says there's a difference between the individual who is shaped by all this conditioning
and the human being who is connected to something much larger. Something universal.
So it's not about losing your individuality. It's about transcending the limitations of your ego, your conditioned self.
You got it. He's pointing to a deeper level of our being that connects us to something beyond our individual experiences.
And he actually suggests that we are responsible for the state of the world, all the wars, the conflicts, the injustices, because we haven't addressed the violence within ourselves.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is. Yeah. But it also makes you think, like, if we want to change the world, maybe we need to start by changing ourselves.
Exactly. And that's what we'll be exploring in more detail as we continue this deep dive into freedom from the known.
I can't wait to dig deeper into that. So stay tuned because we're just getting started.
This is going to be good.
Okay. So last time we were talking about how deeply conditioned we are. All those influences that shape our thoughts and actions without us even realizing it. And it really got me thinking, like, is there any way to move beyond those limitations? Like, can we actually break free from that programming and become more authentically ourselves?
Yeah, it's a big question, right? And Krishnamurti offers some really insightful perspectives on that. One of the key distinctions he makes is between pleasure and joy.
Okay, Now, that's interesting. Most of us are chasing pleasure in some form or another.
Right.
But how is it a trap?
Well, Krishnamurti says that pleasure is always tied to the past, through memory. So you experience something pleasurable, and then you want to experience it again.
Right. Makes sense.
So you end up constantly chasing that memory, that feeling, and it keeps you stuck in this cycle of craving and frustration.
Oh, I see. Like when you hear a song that reminds you of happy time, but then you end up feeling nostalgic and kind of sad because that moment is gone.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. And Krishnamurti actually breaks down the experience of pleasure into 4 stages.
4 stages.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So first there's perception. You hear, smell, taste, or touch something appealing, right?
Yeah, basic senses.
Then comes sensation, the actual feeling you get from it.
Okay. So far, so good. What are the other 2?
Next is contact, either physical or mental engagement with the source of pleasure.
Okay, got it.
And finally, desire, that wanting more of the experience.
Which, as you said, can lead to chasing a memory that's impossible to fully recapture.
Right. It's like trying to catch lightning in a bottle.
This is making me think about all the ways we try to recreate pleasurable experiences, vacations, meals, even relationships. Like we're always trying to recapture that initial magic, but it never quite feels the same.
Yeah, that's the thing about pleasure. It's inherently fleeting and ultimately unsatisfying. It keeps us tethered to the past, and it prevents us from fully experiencing the richness of the present moment. And that's where Krishnamurti introduces the concept of joy.
Okay, so how is joy different from pleasure? Is it just a more intense or lasting form of pleasure?
No, not at all. It's a totally different thing. Krishnamurti says that joy emerges when you're fully present, fully engaged with what is, without the filter of thought, without chasing or grasping.
That sounds amazing, but also really difficult. Our minds are constantly chattering, pulling us into the past or projecting us into the future. How do we actually quiet those thoughts and experience that kind of pure presence?
Well, Krishnamurti points to the power of awareness, He suggests that when we can simply observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment, without getting caught up in them, we create space for joy to emerge.
It's like we're stepping back from the constant stream of mental activity and becoming the observer.
Right, exactly. And how do we develop that kind of awareness? Is it something we're born with, or can it be cultivated?
Yeah, good question.
Krishnamurti believed that anyone can cultivate this awareness, and he often talked about meditation as a powerful tool for doing so. But he wasn't referring to traditional meditation techniques,
Like chanting mantras or trying to enter your mind.
Exactly. He wasn't interested in those kinds of techniques. For Krishnamurti, meditation was about paying attention to your thoughts and feelings as they arise without judgment or resistance.
Oh, interesting. So just noticing them without getting carried away.
Right. It's about noticing those patterns of thinking, the stories you tell yourself, the ways you cling to certain ideas or beliefs.
It's like becoming a scientist of your own mind, observing those mental processes with curiosity rather than getting swept away by them.
I like that analogy a lot. And as we become more aware of our thoughts, we also become aware of the spaces between those thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's in those spaces, those moments of stillness and silence, that joy can arise spontaneously.
This is all starting to connect back to the idea of freedom, isn't it? If we can learn to detach from our thoughts and emotions, if we can break free from that constant mental chatter, maybe we can experience a deeper level of freedom and peace.
You're getting it. That's at the heart of Krishnamurti's teachings. He believed that true freedom comes not from acquiring things or achieving goals, but from understanding the nature of our own minds and learning to live in a state of awareness and presence.
Okay, this is all sinking in. But there's one part that I'm still struggling with. Krishnamurti says that we're responsible for the state of the world because we haven't addressed the violence within ourselves. But how does personal transformation lead to global change? It seems like such a huge leap.
It is a huge leap, and it's certainly not an easy concept to grasp. But Krishnamurti argues that violence in the world is a reflection of the violence within each of us.
He's not just talking about physical violence.
Yeah. Right. He's talking about any form of aggression, anger, hatred, prejudice, even the subtle violence of judgment and criticism. He suggests that these inner conflicts manifest in the outer world as wars, social injustice, and environmental destruction.
So if we can individually transform, if we can learn to live more peacefully and compassionately, then maybe we can contribute to a more peaceful and just world. Is that what he's suggesting?
That's the essence of his message. He believed that individual transformation is not only possible, but that it's essential for creating a better world.
Wow. This is a lot to take in. We've covered so much ground already, from the trap of pleasure to the power of awareness to the connection between inner peace and global transformation. And there's still more to explore.
Right. We've only just scratched the surface. In the final part, we'll delve into Krishnamurti's insights on the burdens of the past, the nature of thought, and the possibility of a total revolution in consciousness.
Wow. We've really been unpacking some profound ideas from J. Krishnamurti,
Yeah.
about breaking free from the known, from all the things that limit our freedom and keep us, stuck in these cycles of suffering. It's been a real mind-bender for me. I'm so curious to kind of dive even deeper. What else did Krishnamurti have to say about this journey of transformation?
Well, he explored so many facets of the human condition, but one that I think is really important to highlight is his emphasis on the burdens of the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
We touched on this a bit before with that story of the two monks and the woman being carried across the river. It's been sticking with me.
It's such a powerful image, right? And Krishnamurti argues that we all carry around these invisible burdens, past hurts, regrets, grudges. Even seemingly positive memories can become baggage if we cling to them too tightly.
Yeah, it's like we're so busy looking backward or worrying about the future that we miss out on the richness and beauty of what's right here, right now. I know I'm guilty of that.
We all are, to some extent. And Krishnamurti believed that true freedom comes from letting go of that baggage. From learning to live in the present moment without the weight of yesterday or the anxiety of tomorrow.
But how do we actually do that? Letting go. Now, it's one thing to intellectually understand the concept, but it's another thing entirely to put it into practice.
It's a process. It takes time and practice. Krishnamurti often emphasized the importance of self-observation, becoming aware of those thought patterns that keep us tethered to the past.
So becoming the observer of our own minds.
Right.
Instead of getting caught up in the stories and the dramas, we learn to witness them with a sense of detachment.
Exactly. He also talked about the importance of questioning everything.
Everything.
Well, not in a cynical or skeptical way, but with genuine curiosity, to see if they're truly our own or if we've simply inherited them from our families, our culture, society at large.
It's like shaking off the dust of all those unexamined beliefs and starting to see the world with fresh eyes. But it can also be scary to question those fundamental things that we've always taken for granted.
It can be unsettling for sure, but Krishnamurti believed that it's the only way to discover true freedom.
So letting go of the past, questioning everything, these are all crucial steps in the journey toward freedom. But what about the future? How do we navigate the uncertainties and anxieties that inevitably arise when we think about what's to come?
That's a great question. And Krishnamurti had some radical ideas about the future, too. He believed that much of our suffering comes from clinging to the idea of a fixed self.
A fixed self.
What do you mean? This idea that there's a me that exists separately from the world, and that this me continues through time unchanging.
Oh, I see. It's like we're trying to hold on to this image of ourselves, this idea of who we are. And that creates a lot of anxiety about the future. We worry about what will happen to me, whether I will be successful, fulfilled.
Exactly. And Krishnamurti suggests that this fixed self is an illusion. He argues that we are constantly changing, evolving beings, and that clinging to this idea of a separate, enduring self only creates suffering.
So instead of trying to control the future, to secure the happiness of this imagined me, we can learn to embrace the fluidity and uncertainty of life.
Yes, to be present with what is, to allow life to unfold without resistance.
It's a beautiful idea, but it also sounds incredibly challenging. Our entire society is built around this idea of planning for the future, of striving for security and certainty.
Krishnamurti understood that. He wasn't naive about the challenges of living this way, but he believed that it's the only path to true freedom. He often talked about the possibility of a total revolution in consciousness.
A total revolution. That sounds pretty dramatic. What would that kind of revolution look like?
He described it as a shift from a fragmented, ego-driven perspective to a more holistic, interconnected way of being. It's about seeing beyond the limitations of our conditioned minds, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, and living from a place of love and compassion.
Well, this deep dive has certainly taken us on quite a journey. We've explored the burdens of the past, the illusions of the future, and the transformative power of living in the present moment. Krishnamurti's ideas are definitely challenging, but they're also incredibly liberating.
They offer a path to a deeper kind of freedom, one that's not dependent on external circumstances, but on the way we perceive and interact with the world.
Exactly, and that's a really powerful message. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us and for guiding us through these thought-provoking ideas.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the journey toward freedom is ongoing. So keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep embracing the transformative power of the present moment.
That's a great reminder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into freedom from the known. We'll see you next time.